Anthony Fosicek from OhioDaily here with Lieutenant Governor Lee Fisher following the Obama Town Hall in Lorain, Ohio. How are you today?
Well, great. It's always wonderful to hear our president.
What did you think of his speech and the tone and the number of things he outlined, which I think a lot of people have forgotten about the last few months?
You know, Anthony, I like the fact that he focused on jobs and the economy. That's the number one issue. There are lots of important issues, but everything comes down to that, and that's what he talked about. He talked about the fact that we've got to get tougher on the banks and make sure that they loan money to small businesses, something that Governor Strickland and I, in fact, are working on as we speak right now.
Let me go back to health care. The Senate right now, or the House right now, could be taking up the bill that the Senate passed. If they pass it, it goes through, it's done, it goes to the President's desk. Should the House pass the Senate bill, or should we continue this discussion?
You know, my attitude is that we have to make sure we don't give up this fight. Whether it's the House version, whether it's the Senate version, I'll leave it up to those in D.C. to figure out what the best process is. I've talked to Senator Brown about it, but my attitude is let's focus on getting something done. What I don't want to do is give up the fight. I want at least the key provisions passed one way or another.
Would you feel more comfortable if the Senate passed, or if the House passed the bill now and the Senate comes back and adds public option and other things possibly later?
Well, the bottom line is that even though this doesn't have a public option, one of the things we should not give up on is getting a public option. We can get it in round 2 if we don't get it in round 1.
And that can be done without the 60 votes, correct?
My understanding is that with the procedure called reconciliation, it could be done. That's right. But I'll be honest with you, I'm just focused right now not on the legislative process, but on the bill and the reform itself. And I think even the best minds in DC right now aren't even sure which process to go with. So my attitude is let them worry about the process. I want to focus on the reform itself.
The President in his remarks today talked about not only health care and job creation, but a whole host of other issues, a lot of the same things that he talked about during the campaign, that when he took office, people were concerned that maybe he was taking on too much. At a time when I think a lot of people almost expected him to pull way back and say, you know what, I am going to do one thing at a time, he kind of charges forward and says, no, we're still going to do all these things. Let's focus on them and get them done. Jobs, obviously, a top priority. Healthcare, a priority. Reforming Wall Street, a priority. Is this the right thing to do, to continue pushing with all of these things all at the same time?
You know, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, and certainly an argument could be made that the sole focus should be on jobs, but once you start a fight, you finish it. And the fact that he had the guts and the courage and the boldness to say that I'm going to tackle something that hasn't been passed in the Congress now for decades and decades and decades, I tip my hat off to him. I'll leave it to the political strategists whether it should have been done, earlier or later. But I admire him for the fact that he was willing to get on the battlefield right away and deal with health care reform, which is a key issue.
Tuesday's election in Massachusetts, Scott Brown, it's sent shockwaves through the political environment. What is your take from that?
My take from that is that people are angry. They're angry primarily because of the economy, either because they're at risk of losing their job or they've lost their job. And they want to hear people talk about not just empathy and sympathy, they want to talk about solutions. They want people who are running for office who get it, who say, here, look, here's how we're going to create jobs, here's how we're going to save jobs, here we're going to train people for the new jobs in the future. And that's what I've been doing most of my career, and certainly for the last 2.5 years, that's my only focus. And frankly, it's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate, because to me, there's nothing more important than the dignity and the purpose of a job, and a good paying job.
There are going to be a lot of people that look at Ohio as trying to be the next Massachusetts, but if you get the nomination and Rob Portman get the nomination on his side, you've got two, and I don't say this as an insult, but you've got two guys who have been in politics for a long time. How do you cast yourself as the outsider in that race?
Oh, it's very easy. Because Mr. Portman has spent his whole life in the privileged corridors of Washington, D.C. He's proud of the fact that he's a Washington insider. Well, I'm proud of the fact that I've been on the ground for Ohio my whole life. So this is between someone who has spent his life on the ground in Ohio and somebody who has spent his life and his career in the halls of Washington, D.C. But the other thing, Anthony, is that it's also a choice between the past and the future. Between someone who actually was the chief architect of the trade policies and the economic policies of the Bush administration that got us into this deepest economic ditch we've been in our entire lifetimes, and someone who has been on the ground with Governor Strickland and many others around the state actually trying to put people into jobs that pay well. I've called for a job creation tax credit because we need to do much more to incentivize businesses at all levels to hire people now and to create new jobs now. So the contrast, it's easy. Somebody who spent his life in Ohio as opposed to somebody who spent his life in D.C., somebody who dug the ditch, and somebody who's going to get us out of the ditch.
Very good. Thank you.